think of the neurons in your head and the ones in your heart. And then the brain is like, your mind is. So it's all about consciously now interrupting both programs. The more that the brain, the subconscious, grabs a hold of, the more things convert to programs.
Welcome to Heal, a podcast about the real stories of what it takes to heal. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Marshall, naturopathic physician, published author, and psychedelic integration guide. What does it really take to heal? We sit down for raw, authentic conversations from science to spirit, trauma to transformation. If you want to learn more, go to my website, sarahmarshallnd.com, and sign up for my newsletter, where I share my most cutting-edge new thinking, what I'm seeing right now in the research and in my clinical practice. So you're getting the most up-to-date information, practical tools in your inbox. Check us out, join us, and enjoy the show. Cari! Oh my gosh! I am so inspired, so deeply moved, so grateful to have you here on Heal with us today. We have Dr. Cari Skrdla. She's a PhD in neuroscience, has her own healing journey we're going to talk about today. And oh my gosh, I mean, I know this episode, I run into this problem every time now where I'm like, this could be 3 hours. We won't do that today, but it could be.
Right.
It could be.
Right.
So I just want to thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Marshall. Yeah. It's a pleasure to be here.
I also love that you call me Dr. Marshall. Do you know that I can count on 2 or 3 fingers how many people call me that? And you are one of the few.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's like a term of endearment between us. I appreciate that.
It really, really is. And, and I've seen you build your career. I've seen a significant part of your journey. And it really is just me honoring that whole space that you hold in the world as a healer, and giving your life to that. So thank you. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, while we've dragged the audience through our little love fest here, where do we want to start? So I'd like to set just some foundation of your education, your background, about your PhD in neuroscience. And I mean, you just started to tell me a couple of things before we got started. And I was like, hold on to that. Let's wait until the show. And so as kind of starting to segue into, why you went and what got you into that level of schooling, like what compelled you to have a PhD?
Well, the PhD was just part of the journey period. It really started when I was 12 years old. I had a brother that returned from Vietnam. And what we thought we were seeing at first was just PTSD. That's what my parents were being told. But then later it was revealed he was schizophrenic. And most people know that if that condition arrives, it's somewhere between the ages typically of 18 and 21. And so at age 18, he was drafted. He was in the military and returned home, and it was fully activated. And what was fascinating to me was, I had not been diagnosed. I was what some people, I got called retarded. Just they had so many names for me. I stuttered, but yet academically, I was crushing it. So it was very, very, kind of odd output. And
I've heard that term as a double exceptional.
Yeah.
Like I have dyslexia and I also was like stellar in mathematics. Like I'd get perfect scores in all math. I was doing like 5th and 6th and 7th grade math when I was in 2nd and 3rd grade. But then I dealt with dyslexia, had a really hard time with language, struggled with my reading, my writing, took a really long time to come through.
Right. And that's really impressive knowing you, because also typically if that neural dynamic is there, then like philosophical and abstract things usually are a challenge as well. Would you say that's the case? Yeah.
No.
No.
Philosophical and abstract. That's interesting. I mean, in some ways, I don't know if this fits into what you're saying, but like, I don't do well with a blank slate. Like if somebody just gives me a blank canvas, I have a hard time coming up with things.
Yeah.
visualizing things is difficult for me. Like my sister, she's artistic, and she literally, you just give her a couple ideas and she can see a whole room that she would redecorate. Me,
Uh-huh.
you've got to give me 3 different images of ways the room could look, and then I can
Yep.
pick and choose my way through, but I have to have starting pieces to come with. So maybe that's what you mean by
Exactly.
abstract.
That's
Okay.
what I mean by
Yeah.
abstract. Totally. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm married to someone like that. You know him. Right. So, in math for him, crushing it. Same thing.
Yeah.
And so it was fascinating that all of a sudden I had this brother that I could connect to when I was so challenged to connect with other people in my family. And here he is dealing with a mental illness in the early 70s. And what was really clear to me is that if he saw scorpions, it didn't work for everybody else in the family to tell him they weren't there. I couldn't figure out why are they telling him nothing is there when he can see them. And so
Mm.
I would interact with what he saw. So I want my brother to feel better, so let's kill some fucking scorpions.
Yes. Whether
Right?
they're there or not, right? Yeah. In
Exactly.
your reality.
In my reality.
Yeah.
And, already I was kind of engaging with life in make believe, anyways. And when you're young, you have more plasticity. So I didn't realize I was rewiring my own brain just by engaging in things that people called make believe. For me,
Mm.
it became an access to a world I was struggling with. And I went to the library, I'm in the 7th grade, and I checked out my first psychology book. Of course, it was Sigmund Freud. And today, most of his work is here's what you don't do to human beings. And, and that began my fascination, really and truly, with how we're designed, how we're manufactured with humanity. So I was a psych major, graduated in 1985, and went to work at Walt Disney in human resources. What a place to put someone that is autistic and socially awkward,
Oh
human
my
resources.
gosh.
But there was something about the experience with my brother that had me relate to people
Yeah.
and what they were dealing with when they would come in and they're frustrated with their supervisors. And within a 10-year period, I was over Disney's media division, all employee staffing. I had accountabilities in California, in Michigan. I'm traveling the world assessing people for talent movements. And I couldn't figure out how I got there because especially back then, psychology was like this crappy degree that nobody really knew what to do with it. And so I fell in love with business and decided to go on and get a master's degree. And there I focused more on organizational development. But when corporations began to just break my heart, and here's what I mean by that. Human beings were not thought of as human beings. I'm in meetings and we can't refer to people as people. They were cost per unit. And there seemed to be an absence of concern for people and the decisions we were making. It was all about stockholders and that just didn't work for me. So I resigned in 1997 and went to work on the academic side. And there is where I decided to move forward. A lot of people don't know if you work for a college or university, one of the employee benefits is education for free. So it's like, well, I'm here. I may as well get a doctorate, right? And oh my gosh, hold on. That was the ride of my life. I was not expecting what happened to happen. And I was like maybe 3 years into, all of the work when my then mother-in-law became very ill. We took her to the hospital and they said, well, she was always going to be this sick. She has a genetic heart defect and we need to replace certain things with bioidentical tubes, that sort of thing. And they performed surgery. And Immediately following the surgery, my mother-in-law would look at me and say, I don't feel like myself. And she was depressed. The surgery had gone well. They replaced two heart valves and did some rewiring, but she was different. So I started to inquire, like, where did these parts come from? Because what was clear to me one day looking in her eyes, you don't feel like the same person, and I'm not looking at the same person. Now, this was just with partial transplant, right?
Yep. Yep.
So I started studying Dr. Marshall at the library because we didn't have Google.
Remember microfiche? We had to go look up articles on microfiche. I know. Yeah. That's
Right.
all
And
right.
they
I
look
was
like
there
those
too.
double exposure kind of, reverse exposure things.
Yeah.
And so I'm at the library and I'm studying and studying. And I started to come across some interesting articles about heart transplant patients and how their the transplant had altered their behavior, their personalities, their identity had changed. And that's what I was seeing with my mother-in-law. And clearly, she was the recipient of something that had come from parts that had come from a depressed person, because that was now her demeanor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So much so, she lost her will to live. And the doctors kept saying, I don't know why she's doing fine. Physically, there was no determinant as to why she did not have more light, joy, more happiness. And the things that she was saying, we had never heard her say before. What does it matter? You want me to get better for what? And it was so unlike her. And 6 months after she was released, fully physically recovered, she died. She
Wow.
died. Just
This
no
is like
will
a
to
whole
live.
nother take on the conversation. The body keeps the score. Because
Exactly.
it's like how much might actually literally be in our tissues that
Exactly.
only a transplant patient would be able to have any experience of.
Right. And those things are not cleared. It's dealt with like it's just so mechanical. But as
I
a
mean, if you
neural,
have enough of an immune system match, that's the end of, I mean, granted,
that's the end of it.
transplant lists are hard. It's hard enough to find matches. I get that. But then screening for quality of life, screening for personality, screening for, psychological factors would be, I mean, that's fascinating.
Isn't it? It to the
So then
point where
this
I'm
was
like,
part
what
of your PhD thesis, right? This is what you went to work on.
exactly? Well, my thesis was just so usual cognitive behavior and just that, but this flipped everything.
Hmm.
Now I'm studying the neurons in the heart. And there was such limited research on it. But how do the neurons in the heart, and I know you talk about gut health, neurons in the gut, right?
Yeah.
How are they all communicating with the brain? Because your body, we put so much emphasis on it, but it's an instrument of the brains.
Yeah.
All three brains use the body, right? And so I started looking at that and I found some really interesting articles. And the one I think that fascinated me the most was a gentleman described as very conservative, CPA type. He was a CPA. He had a full heart transplant. And after his recovery, he came home one day. Well, let me take a step back. His wife said she noticed when she was taking him home from the hospital, he's sitting, he's got his heart pillow, and she has music playing. He reached over and changed the station.
Hmm.
And he changed the station and was listening to rock and roll. So, I mean, we stereotype engineers and accountants and things like that, but
I
just
come from a long line of
imagine,
engineers.
right? And they
Yes.
are. Mine is one, they are stoic, right?
Yep.
And all of a sudden she looks and there he is just kind of head bopping to the rock and roll. And she thought, wow, that's interesting. And the entire time she's equating it with, yeah, well, I guess if I had a near death experience or something, I would want a new
Right.
lease on life. And
Yep.
one day he came home with a guitar and she's like, oh, he's going to take up guitar lessons. He took out the guitar and started playing and playing it well.
Wow.
And now she's curious, whose heart does he have? And
Hmm.
she went and found out he had the heart of a
Just as you
musician.
said that, whose heart did he have? I got this like wash. Like,
Yeah,
that's, I mean, really, like your heart, how much our soul and who we are. I mean, in Chinese medicine, they don't have the brain as a noble organ. It's the
yeah,
circuitry. It's not an organ.
yeah, yeah.
What we Westerners think of as the brain in Chinese medicine is much more the heart. The heart is the emperor of the body. It's the one that's main mission and imperative is fulfilling the soul contract of who you are, your personality. I mean, in that
Amen.
context, which I tend to think is more accurate than our Western version of anatomy and physiology, doing a heart transplant would be literally like doing a brain transplant.
Yes.
The way we would think of it in a Western world, being able to
Exactly.
take
No, I
somebody's brain out of
totally
one.
get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's why what you're saying is it's actually answering something for me because I'm like,
Hmm.
why are we so laxed in our engagement with the human heart? And I'm talking, in the wellness industry, in the
Yeah.
surgical world. Why are we so laxed with that? So you just answered something for me. And what I saw that fascinated me more than anything was, why is it that the recipients of all of these people that I'm reading their cases, all these case studies, why is it that they could hear the new heart louder than they could their old heart,
Hmm.
right? And there's the matter of what's in the human heart, but we don't listen to our hearts anymore. And it's because the brain is shutting it down. The neurons in the heart communicate with the brain 80% of the time because it expresses in images and sounds. It does not communicate in words, so it needs the mind, the brain in your head to articulate on its behalf. But the brain is like a hover parent, and it's like, no way, no way are you expressing that.
That was a
Last
terrible
time,
idea. That's only going to get you
exactly.
hurt, in trouble, broke, heartbroken. No, all of that. Bad idea.
Because what
Yeah.
is it? Life sustaining. So
Yeah.
it used to communicate to my heart, oh no, remember the last time you fell in love? That was a clusterfuck. And I'm like, but I was 16, right? But I was
Totally.
16, I want to love. And it's like, no, no,
So we
shutting
got to
me
get to the
down.
punchline of the story of the CPA, though. So
Right.
whose heart did he have?
He had the heart of a 15-year-old musician that
Oh
died in
my
a car
gosh.
crash. He was 49 years old, no desire, probably a lot like you and I, just, this is who I am, this is how my brain works, right? And all of a sudden now he can hear music. Music is being communicated to his brain, and his brain doesn't know how to shut the new heart down because it has no history with it,
Wow.
right? It's completely rewiring. Quick side note, my husband in 2021 had a quintuple bypass.
Okay.
Quintuple. He had 7 blockages, Dr. Marshall, and none of them were under 50%. And I remember his cardiologist was like, I wasn't expecting this. And he was so cute. He was like, Mrs. Skrdla, this is not from bacon. He said, wives always think that I'm giving my husband too much bacon. He said, this is genetics and years and years and years of stress
Hmm.
and not knowing how to manage that stress, right? So when we met with the surgeon, because his cardiologist, like, stents won't help you. I have no argument here. You need a surgeon. And we sit down with the surgeon, and I'm immediately concerned about what's going to happen neurologically. And the doctor said one thing: I won't be stopping his heart. And that right
Hmm.
there was so important. So you take a heart transplant patient, there's no way not to shut everything down when you're doing it. Whereas, like, the bypass was happening, this guy was so skilled, he's rewiring, restructuring my husband's whole heart area, and he doesn't have to stop it from beating. But come on,
Yeah.
you're replacing. So that meant everything shut off with this accountant.
Mm.
And now it booted back up, and the brain has no history at all of what it needs to protect him from. That's why he could hear it. And that's why he just literally took out a guitar and started playing it. One woman in the case studies, and there were pictures in it, and you were the one talking about the microfiche, so you know what it looked like, right? And there were these
Mm-hmm.
photographs, and with each of them, it was like before and after. You see him in a before photo, and he's like, tie. I even think he had the pocket protector.
Yeah, nice.
Or I may have
Yeah,
made that up,
right.
but it just
Yeah.
seemed like
We're just
he was
adding to the character.
auto.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? And this, and then all of a sudden there he is, and he's just like very leisurely. The same with the woman. She was described as like a June Cleaver, stay-at-home mom. And all of a sudden there she is with this spiky hair, and she became a interior designer, just this creative person, because she's hearing what's in another person's heart, and there's nothing in her brain that can shut it down.
So you and I both have a background in transformational coaching and like the study of
Mm-hmm.
ontology, which for people is essentially the philosophical study of being, how we be a human
Yeah,
being. A little
yeah,
esoteric concept, but the idea is that your ways of being will ultimately shape how you view the world, and how you view the world will give you the actions you're willing to take, not willing to take. So
right,
if you were a child and you took a risk with somebody or something, and inside of that risk you got laughed at or ridiculed or embarrassed, your brain then wires itself to, I'm not going to take a risk in that way. I'm not going to speak in front of the group. I'm not going to raise my hand in class. I'm not going to put
right.
my ideas out there to be criticized. And we get these brain patterns, right, that formulate layer upon layer upon layer. Don't do that. That's dangerous. Don't do that. That's dangerous. Don't do that. That's dangerous. Most of the danger, not all, but most of it has much less to do with our physical safety and has way more to do with, will I belong? Will they like me? Can I stay connected to the tribe? Because for
Right.
human beings, our ultimate mechanism of survival is that there are going to be people around us that we can count on and can count on us, and we are okay and accepted in our tribe. Belonging is massive for us.
Yes. Yes.
So what I'm picturing here is you have a brain that's hardwired to shut down a certain set of heart's desires from their original heart. That heart gets taken out, somebody else's heart gets put in, and it's almost like getting an ontological clean slate,
Yep.
because the brain's wired for a whole different set of heart's desires, and shutting those down. And then
Exactly.
this new heart comes in that's like, oh no, this is all brand new information. And the brain's kind of like, sure. I don't know. I don't really know what to do with that.
Exactly. Especially because our brains are, when you consider that whole area you were talking about of being, right? And in the 90s, everybody was all about the ego. Oh, we have to overcome the ego, right? And
Good luck with that.
good luck with
Yes.
that, because all it does is just rearrange and come back some other angle,
And then
right?
my ego is working on dissolving my ego. And then that gets really
Exactly.
interesting.
That's totally it.
Yeah,
That's exactly what
I know.
happens.
Yes.
And before you know it, you're just kind of like sleepwalking again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was my fascination. How do we get that clean slate you just spoke of, and without getting our hearts taken out of our chest,
Very good question.
right?
I think that would be less dramatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and cosmetically more appealing as well, because my husband has the zipper.
Yep. Yep.
But it really came down to confronting it, first
Hmm.
being aware of it, and then realizing how attached we are to it for the reasons you just stated. Survival. Some of us have careers that it's like, well, if I break out of this, what am I going
Yeah.
to do? There's all of these reasons why we kind of stay in that place, even though we are um, almost like in a walking coma as a result of it. And this is hardcore science right here that I'm about to drop. Okay. Two,
Bring
there
it
were
on,
two,
baby.
I'm gonna bring it. There were two things that really showed up for me in television viewing, and it was the 90s. And I'm working on all of this, and I'm watching a Seinfeld episode. I'll never forget the day. And some of you go to Netflix, I think it's running on there, and look up George's Opposite Day. And George Costanza is a character that his life is just not going. He's living with his parents. He can't get a job. And he walks into the deli to meet with his friends, and he sits down and he places his order, and then he says, "Stop. I always order that. And every decision I've ever made in my life has brought me to this point. So I'm going to do the opposite." And he places an order. And shortly after, Elaine says, "Hey, George, that woman over there is looking at you." And he was like, "Oh my gosh, she's beautiful." And she says, "Why don't you go talk to her?" And he said, "I'm bald. I live with my parents. I'm unemployed, and I'm going to go talk to her." And Jerry says, "Well, look, if everything decision you've made has given you a life you don't want, opposite, why not?" So he walks over and he says, "I noticed you were looking at me." And she said, "Yeah." She said, "It's odd. You ordered the exact same meal that I did. That's my favorite meal." And he gives her this long stare, and then he says, "I'm unemployed. I live with my parents. I'm bald. I'm overweight. Would you like to go out?" And she said, "Yes." And then from there, he gets a job with the New York Yankees. His whole life just turns around, right?
Yep.
And that's what I like to bring to people. And like, if you really want to come out of this sleep, then you are going to do the opposite of who you are. And it takes something. It seems easy, but no, the hold that the brain, the human brain has on human beings, and shutting down the heart, overriding the gut, is so, in our culture here, it is so severe that people literally enter into what I call a terror barrier. And the wall comes up and they go back to their comfort zone. So
Hmm.
staying then with the science of it all, this hardcore science, same episode, a commercial comes on, and the commercial is Trick cereal. And I remember thinking, this is odd placement for Trick cereal commercial. It was almost like the universe had it there just for me, because it's not Saturday morning.
Yep.
And I'm looking at this silly rabbit, and I researched it. That commercial, that series with the rabbit started running. The first commercial aired in 1954. And here it is about this time, I think 1994. And I'm going, why is he stuck? And I did a talk a couple of years ago, and I said, all right, guys, this is serious science here. And I did a chronology of the Trix rabbit. He's stuck. Tricks are for kids. His heart wants Trick cereal, and he can't create anything other than his own demise around it. He tried disguises. One time he got advice from Bugs Bunny, right? And really here, those
But
are
he's
all the
trapped
things
in
that
his
we
own
do.
neurology, right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
he's trying to find some way to get there, get where he wants and achieve what he wants. And he doesn't realize he has accepted the idea that he can't have something. That's the issue. And
Hmm.
his heart is still longing for it. And he's still trying to use this up here, the brain, to get there, scheming and everything. But what if you just opened your heart, right? Listen to the heart and let it lead you. What your heart will tell you are, and I'll draw from my own experience now instead of the cereal. I wanted, and this was me again coming out of the trap of my own brain. I wanted to go and see Bob Seger in when I lived in Michigan. Bob Seger is a Detroit boy, right? And I want to see him in concert, but it's not going to be in Detroit. And all of my friends are telling me, like, it's out there in the suburbs. You can't go out there. And they're telling me I can't go because of the color of my skin.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I'm going. And this is what it means to move outside of your programming in the head and through the terror barrier that the brain puts up to stop you and to hold you in that identity. So I said, I'm going. You don't want to go with me? No, I'm not going out there. No, I'm not going out there. So I remember hearing my own heart when I went outside the city limits by myself to buy tickets. Boom, 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 boom. And I started singing because my brain was just freaking out, freaking out. And I remember I was crying and I was singing, "This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island." And I was saying to myself, I'm an American and I'm going to this concert. I was a kid, right? And, in terms of my development.
Yeah.
And I went
Yeah.
and I got my ticket and I went to the concert by myself. I could only afford lawn seats out there at Pine Knob, shout out Michigan. And there were all of these people there that did nothing but embrace me and love me and take care of me. That was it. I remember
Yeah.
this one man turned around and he's like, he said, "Are you here by yourself?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they offered me a beer, Dr. Marshall. And I'm like, I shouldn't be drinking. Thank you. And it opened something. And that's the
Yeah.
hack that I try and show people, right? You don't need a heart transplant. You need your heart unleashed. And it's going to start with you breaking through the terror barrier that puts you back in your comfort zone, which, by the way, is not very comfortable if we admit it,
Right. Yeah.
because it's familiar,
It's familiar. Yeah.
right?
But it's not
But
even
it's not
particularly
comfortable.
safe because it's just the same pain. It's the same fears. It's the same challenges. I remember, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on Heal, but I'm like a super adventurous person. I'm willing to do a lot of things.
I love that about you, by the way.
But jumping out of an airplane was never one of them. That was
Yeah.
like that was my limit, my edge, like, and
Yeah.
I'm not an adrenaline junkie in that way, but like literally.
Yeah.
But I had a good friend of mine who I had actually challenged him to take a course with the company you and I used to participate with, Landmark. And inside of my standing for him to take this course was all of this, like, face your fears, go and do something difficult. Like, you got to trust me. Well, he's in the advanced course of Landmark. And one of the people that he bonds with is a skydiving instructor. And so he comes to me at the end of the course and he says, "We're going skydiving on Friday." And I was like, "Oh, to hell we are."
Right.
But then he used all my tricks against me. And he's like, "I'm standing for you and you've got to go out of your comfort zone. And this is about," and I was like, oh my God. So there I am in Arizona driving out to Elcoy.
Oh, I
Eloy.
remember when you did
one
it.
of those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you probably do.
Mm-hmm.
I have never been that scared of anything in my entire life. It was terrifying. It was literally terrifying. The whole drive out there, I wouldn't talk to him. We get to the airport, the whole process, I am like a mess. I mean, I was good enough that they were going to actually let me go. I think that if you're in enough distress, they're going to look at you and be like, "No, you can't do this." But I was very nervous. And then we go up in the plane, the whole thing. I will not do the play-by-play. And then I get like this 270-pound, Air Force vet who's jumped thousands and thousands and thousands of times strapped to my back. So like, I mean, I was fine, but I didn't feel fine.
Yeah.
But I had this breakthrough around fear. So I don't ever need to do it again. I've had the breakthrough. I'm complete. But what I got was I had a physiologic limit to fear. It was like I could only feel so much. And when I got to that limit, I discovered I'd been here before.
Yes.
When I was a whitewater rafting guide, when I had been in certain situations on the side of a mountain skiing, like there was this physical, very in my body, physiologic experience of fear. And it had a limit. My body, it's like if you're really sick to your stomach and you're vomiting, you can only vomit so much. Like it's not,
Yeah.
there's a point at which you're as bad as it's going to get. It's not going to get any worse.
Right.
So I had this complete distinction between fear and panic,
Yes.
because fear was very physical. It was in my body, and this
Yes.
imprinted what that felt like. Whereas
Yes.
panic was the mental conversation, which
Mm-hmm.
some, you could even say terror fits in that category as well. What your mind will do to you, distinct from
Mm-hmm.
what you feel in your body. And what
Right.
I think about in that sense of like leaving your comfort zone is I started to discover inside of that, like, I live in fear all the time. There's fear all
Mm-hmm.
over my life. So all I'm doing is taking my fear under my arm and dragging it with me to go outside of my comfort zone. And like,
Yep.
I appreciate the George Costanza opposite day, and I think there's places to play with that. But also, I've recognized with my clients, you don't have to go swim with the sharks as your
No.
first move. You can put
No.
your toe in the water. You can
Yes.
just put a pinky finger outside your comfort zone. Just start to lean into those
Right.
edges. And what you could probably tell us a lot about, that my understanding is, every time you do that, you break up a brain pattern and you create new neuronal pathways. You're
Exactly.
opening up your neuronal plasticity. And then what I would imagine, that what does it even mean to have neuronal plasticity in our hearts? How can
Yeah.
we break that up as well?
Well, and here's what I came to. There's a book and it's called The Heart's Code. And the which I used a lot of the research from Dr. Pearson. He's passed away, and the heart does not have that requirement.
Hmm.
It does not, and most likely because it does not communicate in words. See, the framework of language is where we start to get trapped in these things, because um, think about it. People were calling me retarded when I was a child, and
Yeah.
these were adults. This these weren't the kids. These were adults saying that, and I'm nearby and I can hear it. I think she's retarded, and I had an adult ask me that. So this language is
Hmm.
helping to restrict me, but my heart, it's interesting. I could hear my heart. My heart still had empathy for them, care for them, right? I
Yep.
I actually it didn't people have said to me like that had to be really damaging. And I'm like, no, my heart actually helped me to understand
Hmm.
that they were the ones limited, not
Yep.
me, right? And so we don't have that kind of constraint, but that kind of constraint around the heart. But what's interesting in what you said, when we rewire the brain, right, from the space of the heart, that's what we have to check in
Hmm.
with. The brain is very, very uncomfortable with that because, for one, there may not be a program that allows it to understand it. Why are we making this decision? Just think of the neurons in your head and the ones in your heart as your parents. So your heart is the parent that's like the cool parent. Like, yeah, you can go to the party. And then the brain is like, your mind is like, yeah, but are you safe? And you can't really dance. And I think you need to just stay home so you're not embarrassed, right? And then the cool parent is like, no, let's go out, and who cares what the world thinks about how we dance. So it's all about consciously now
Hmm.
interrupting both programs and saying, I think I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to go with my heart. And that is the ultimate decision maker. The only problem with that is the more that the brain, the subconscious grabs a hold of, the more things convert to programs. So we have to keep faking it out, keep interrupting it. Give you an example. Last night, I did not want to come onto this podcast dead. I didn't want to come on like Dr. Blah, 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 and all of the things I know. I wanted to be with my friend, my colleague. So to disrupt my usual engagement, which is all a program, this is what I do when I wake up 30 jumping jacks. I t- and then I start, teeth brushing. I took a scarf and in my living room hung it over the ceiling fan.
Hmm.
The moment I walked out of my bedroom, because I had already defaulted in the night to my
Yep.
usual set of programs, as soon as I stepped out, it startled me because I had literally had it just hanging. It startled me. So that's how we hack into it, startle ourselves. We have to disrupt our own programming. I've taken, for example, a broom and laid the handle of the broom across the door so that when I open my bedroom door, I'm like immediately startled.
Interesting.
I put it there, and
Right,
then
but it still catches you off guard. Yeah.
because we wake up just in this default mode.
Yeah.
I've got to go. I got to get my mother up. I got to fix breakfast. I got to do this. And,
Yep.
and there
Yep.
it
And
is.
running on the
Actually,
automatic programming. Yeah. Yeah. All
so
right.
just real quick,
Yeah,
if
do.
you,
And then
I
I
just
got
want
so
to,
many questions.
okay.
Okay, good.
So,
Yeah.
so I notice you can notice it when you get in your car, you're driving a car, your car. Think about when you first learn to drive. Remember, you could hear your own heart. We
Yeah.
all got the same instruction, right? Start your car and give it some gas. I can still hear my dad and my sister laughing in the back seat. And then one day you're doing something, or maybe it was just me, like driving a 5-speed manual car, doing this with my knee
Yep.
or an elbow eating a cheeseburger,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's a program for you now.
Yeah. Or
The
we can be
subconscious
driving for
mind,
miles and not even realize
not
like
even
I was
realize
completely
it,
checked out. Yeah.
especially if you got an audio book going or some music, right?
Yeah.
And you're just like out, and then there you go, you arrive. And the only time the subconscious will come out of that is if there is something that arises in that situation that the subconscious does not have a program for. So something flying at your windshield or a flat tire, the subconscious goes, hey, conscious brain, I need you to come online. I don't know how to deal with this.
Yep.
Right? And it will completely abandon you in that moment and give you over to either your heart, right? Depending on what it is that it can't deal with, it can't disrupt, it can't block. And this is why opposite day is so good until, of course, the brain catches on to what you're doing, right?
Right.
But it will alert the conscious mind. Now, I want some grace here because I could be wrong, but the last article that I read coming out of the pandemic said that we are asleep in our programs 90%, 96% of the time. That means that we're numb to terrorism, we're numb to mass shootings, children being
Yep.
abducted. We literally have become accustomed to it.
Yeah.
And unless we hear something so startling to jolt us and bring us out, then it's just normal operation.
Yeah.
And we're at a place now that even when we come out, we put ourselves back in quickly because we don't know what to do about the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we've mentioned that you had a diagnosis of autism.
Hmm.
I have a couple questions about it. Just from
Okay.
your own experience, I want to hear like how did that show up for you? What did you deal with around it? And then the other piece is and I know I'm not supposed to ask two questions at once, but I'm a rebel. Is how do you see your, however you like to say it, your autism or your autistic brain actually has served you
Yeah.
in the ways, because like you are one of the most unique people I know, and the way that you see the world and the way you put things together, and I gotta think that there's some relationship between those things. So how
Yeah.
does your autism show up for you? Like what's your experience of it, and then how have you seen that has actually served you?
So as a child, the experience was like being behind a glass wall. The world was out there, and I could see everyone, hear everyone, but could not reach them, nor could they reach me. It was
Hmm.
literally the experience of being nothing. I did not know how to articulate how I saw things, how to articulate in words what I felt. But all I felt for people was just like a massive capacity for love. And it terrified my parents, because I'm a kid and I would just walk up to people and slip my hand in theirs,
Mm.
right? Because I had perceived something about them that they were hurting somehow. And I just remember the first time anyone that I'm looking at through the glass, I realized that they saw me back. It was my first grade teacher, Mrs. Hill. And I remember sitting one day and playing with some blocks, and I looked up and she was just looking at me. And I looked behind me and I looked back at her, and she smiled at me and I smiled at her. So she started to keep me during recess, because all I would do is go out and stand in a corner alone. So she
Yeah.
started keeping me in class with her and showing me how to write. And this is why I can write so much better than I can speak or think, just words. She opened me up almost like Helen Keller,
Mm.
right? And words began to give me an opportunity to express what was inside me. The only person who could understand through all of the stuttering what I was saying or attempting to say was my younger sister that passed away in 2019. And so that altered her somehow. People would look at us and they would go, "Oh, I thought she was the oldest," because she was just taking care of me and protecting me. So through mimicking, and you're familiar with the MNS, which is the mirror neuron system, I started doing what my younger sister was telling me to do. She would say, "Look at me." She was trying, because I made eye contact with no one. I looked at no one. And I remember someone saying one time, "You're shifty-eyed, so you probably lie a lot." Actually, it's the
Mm.
extreme opposite. If a person is looking you directly in the eye, they're not accessing anything, right? So they're probably
Yeah.
lying.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's interesting. My sister would go, "Look at me and do what I do." And she was 2.5 years younger than me, and she's like 5 or 6 years old, and she's saying, "Do what I do." And I would go, "Okay." And I remember her teaching me how to say three, because I would try, and she would go, "Put your tongue here." So it was that plasticity that was there, because when you're young, especially before age 12, right, you're still so malleable. And my sister was dumping that in there. And then it went to me noticing beautiful people like flowers. Anytime I call my mother, like this morning it happened, I'm like, "Mom, are you all set? I've got to go. I'm going to be on with my friend, Dr. Sarah Marshall." And she looked at me and she said, "She's pretty, isn't she?" And I was like, "Mom, don't start." And she's like, "She is, isn't she?" And I was like, "She is." And she said, "Yeah, you're still collecting pretty people, right?" No doubt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Audience, you should see my friend base. Dr. Marshall is one of them. And so there would be people I was just drawn to. And I remember Mrs. Hill was one of the first, and I would mimic her. And then later, there was a woman at my childhood church, Karen. I remember Karen Hemsley. She had this blonde updo, and I started to wear my hair that way and walk the way she walked. And every month I would be a different character until
Mm.
one day around age 12, I looked at a woman and I said, "The pattern in your blouse looks like lizard skin." And I just remember my mother going, she said a whole sentence and not once did she stutter. I had been rewiring. Now, the diagnosis didn't come until my son was being diagnosed. He was
Wow.
14. I'm in my 40s at that point, and I'm hearing Asperger's, ADHD. This is his output. And my husband at the time is nudging me. And I'm like, I know, I'm going to, I know, right? I'm going to make an
Uh,
appointment. And I'm like, doctor, I need to see you.
yeah.
And of course, what they had to do for me, especially at that age, was have me answer questions in the assessment as to what it was like when I was a child.
Yep.
And I just remember the neuropsychiatrist, Dr. Matthews, he was amazing. He was fascinated by me. And he said, you mimicked your way into neuroplasticity. That's what you did. You rewired,
When you tell
right?
me stories about what your childhood was like, it blows my mind that you are the way you are now. I mean,
Yeah.
especially given that you didn't have huge interventions and therapists working with you and all of the, I mean, you literally did not have that support system at all. It's pretty
No.
freaking remarkable.
Yeah. Well, and it really came down to a father
Mm.
that just loved me. My mother, she struggled with me. She didn't understand that me asking questions, which I used to write them down a lot. Why do we have to do that? And because I couldn't get it out. And even now, if I get excited, I'll stutter, right? Or if I
Yeah.
get upset, I can't bring it together. And so I would write down, why do we have to do that? And my mother is going, because I said so. What my father was able to get a hold of was she can't move until she understands.
Yeah.
And my
You
mother,
needed something to hold on to. Yeah.
exactly. And my mother saw it as a matter of me questioning her. And I
Yeah.
heard my father tell her one day, can't you see that that's the way her brain works? She's just trying to understand. And so my dad would take time and keep me with him and take me places with him and show me things. And he was discovering things about me. Like I like to build things. That's why I build houses today. Isn't that
Yeah.
funny?
Yeah.
And um and finally around 16, my mother said, "You're done hanging out with your father. Look at your legs, they're all scarred up." And then a different type of grooming began to take place where it was like applying makeup. And all of it was this world of make believe for me. None of it was real.
You were
It
playing a
was,
role.
I was,
Yeah.
it, I was. And it was around age 28 when it literally felt like this, like the wall started to pull back. But what I noticed in that environment, like I'm 62 years old, and people are always like, I don't relate to you like that. And I joke, and they'll look at me like, is she joking? Do I laugh at that? Because I'll go, well, that's because I was delayed,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm like, so I'm always going to be around 15 years younger than everybody else in my age group. I was delayed. And what really did not help at all was being academically gifted. And I skipped the third grade. So I went from second grade to fourth grade. I don't recommend that. So I'm
Yeah.
taller than everyone. I
Yep.
stutter. Academically, I'm heightened, but I don't have any friends. I'm socially awkward. So that really pulled me into make believe. When I got home, I would go in my room, close the door, and I would act out all of the characters from school. It was an interesting thing. And my mother would crack the door and look so frustrated, like, what weird thing are you in here doing now?
Oh
So
my
everything that I wanted to say to the
God.
kids at school,
Yeah.
I would go in there and I would act like I'm playing,
Yeah.
patty cake with Wineen Green, who was the coolest girl at school. And I would have conversations with her, and then I would mimic her, and I would show up at dinner as her, right? Isn't that
Fascinating.
something?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So then to the second half of my question, with what you know now about the brain and about how neurology works, how do you see what you maybe have struggled with around autism has also been what's like shaped your gifts and who you are?
I think I think it gave me an opportunity to know myself better, because when you exist only in an internal world while being planted in this massive place we call Earth, right? You can hear yourself. You can hear your thoughts, even if you can't articulate them to others. And what I came to understand was the entire time I was listening to my heart.
Hmm.
That's who was talking.
Hmm.
And it's still the loudest part of my existence, my heart. Also, it gave me, it increased existential intelligence for me to be able to perceive other people. And if you look at my LinkedIn, for example, I've got something like 22 recommendations from people that I worked with, university leaders and people like that. And they all say the same thing. Can you imagine me at a university when everybody else is predominantly on the Myers-Briggs, like INTJ? They're like Bill Gates' personality everywhere. And here I come with arms waving around and colors, and they would all just look like this in the conference room, you know? But
Yeah.
there was always somebody I would find, like Dr. Gold at ASU or somebody like that, that would say, let's give her idea a chance, or let's listen to her. And so they would all write the same thing about me. I don't know how she did it. Don't know how she did it, but somehow she convinced us, to try this, and she's the most resourceful. And that's what it did. It made me, it, it had me connect with people in an understanding, and I can see things like resources and tools and concepts that they were shut down with because they're neurotypical.
Yeah.
All of that
Yeah.
mimicking put me in a world that at one point was not so make believe to me.
Yeah.
And it's still that way for me. The world that people want to access of abundance and the law of attraction requires them to hold an imagination in their minds and to charge it with energy and excitement. But I'm in that world all of the time. And this is what I tell people: I'm not healed from autism. It's still there. Just spend enough time with me and you'll see it.
Yeah.
Last night it came up. I was talking to my friend on the phone, and he was like, you seem kind of weird last week. And I was like, and the answer is, what is autism? Right? So it's still there.
Yeah.
And I'll drift off into make believe or something like that. But the difference now with rewiring is I'm able to go into that place and bring that back here. And what
Yeah.
I see is a world, right? A world of here in the 21st century where people like me, you look all before, neurotypical people were driving industry. They were I'm just an early arriver of
Yeah. Because
everything
it's
that we're
flip-flopped
seeing with
now.
Gen
Like,
Z.
yeah, it's huge. Absolutely. My sister and I were just talking about this, that inside of a corporate organization, you actually will maximize productivity and maximize innovation if you hold a certain percentage of neuroatypical people in positions, like what they bring, the way they see the world. Now, I'm dealing a little bit with the conversation of like, who's the neurotypical ones anymore? What does that even mean nowadays? And especially then when we layer in the effects of trauma and complex PTSD, which pretty much I don't know anyone that
Oh
doesn't have
my
some
gosh,
variation
that.
of that.
Yes,
So,
yes.
that brings another layer in. And spectrumy, I probably fall more in the neurotypical than neuroatypical in a lot of ways, but there's places where it shows up. And like, I'm very much a global thinker. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I will not understand something until I understand how all the pieces fit together. So when I studied physiology and I'm in med school and we're learning how the heart works, we're learning how the kidneys work, we're learning how the digestive system works, we're going through all of these things. I mean, it was like so challenging for me. And I would sit there like banging my head against the wall with all these parts and pieces. And then I worked out a system of the way that I studied. I actually took blank piece of cardstock paper and a whole bunch of different colored pens. And I would start in one corner with a piece of information that I knew, and I would build mind maps about that organ system. And I would draw and I would add pieces of information, and I would keep adding all of this until the whole page was full. And then it was like, do you remember, I mean, I'll speak in the 90s, those magic eye pictures in the malls where they were all pixelated and you couldn't see
Yeah.
anything until you changed your point of focus.
Yes.
So it was like that for me, where I just have all of this detail and all of these parts and pieces. And then at some point, the system would pop out in 3-dimensional reality, and I would be like holding a human heart in my brain, and I could turn it and spin it and see all the different directions. And I could see how this artery fed into the lungs, and how then when the lungs do this and then the kidneys do that. And I could start to see all of physiology all as one interconnected global system.
Yeah.
Which, as a physician and a diagnostician, is a huge skill that I can bring to my clients. As a business owner, it's very hard for me to put myself in a box and be defined. People are like, what do you do and who do you do it for? What's your target market?
Right.
And I'm like, humans? Can humans be my target market? Like, all of them. It's really interesting. Like, I don't fit in that box, and I've just kind of run with it. But that's the places where I see, for me, my neuroatypia shows up. And like, I am very multidisciplinary. I draw from lots of different wisdom traditions and pull all them together in holistic thinking. But give me like a single linear concept that you want me to follow A to B to C, and not my jam.
To me, that is the opposite of neurotypical. It really is, it's what I hear very similar is that you wire yourself in such a way that you're engaging out here in the external world with the desires of your heart for humanity, right? Yeah. And you found a way to understand what you needed to understand, right? And deliver it. And you are called to the world. Audience, I've known her, and
15
like
years, I think we're close to 15 years. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And in all of that time, I've seen you like really move into yourself.
Yeah.
And just throw off all of the expectations and everything as to what a doctor should be. And just imagine me in residency. I was so annoying because I'm like, oh, I'm making all these noises and and I'm bouncy, I still don't know I've got ADHD, and one day one of my, he's now the chief nursing officer at one of the hospitals here. I won't mention it, but I just remember one day he looked at me and he said, "Can you quit bouncing?" And my mind went back to my mother coming up to the school, and the principal she was meeting with, she said, is my daughter not doing her work? Is she not a good student? He was like, oh yeah, she's doing her work. Nobody else could get anything done because of her. Right? Because I was always bouncing off of something. I didn't talk as much then because of the stuttering. And so I had to, after I heard that, I had to find a way to just kind of like curb my enthusiasm for learning and not blurt so much my excitement or answers or questions. And the discovery of heart neurons and all of that, the more I'm studying, the more I'm connecting it to that. And the sounds I would make would be because I was excited that I had figured something out that I could now bring to humanity. And that's really what I hear with you, doing the work, right? And finding a way to get it so you can serve. And that is a motivation that came from your heart, that used your brain adequately. I want people to really get that.
Yeah. I appreciate that a lot. And like, I mean, I was wondering when I was going to say this, because we're only a few episodes into doing video format.
Yeah.
I did 130 episodes audio over 5 years, and I was really comfortable in that space. And this was not my idea. This was my team said, Sarah, you've got to be on YouTube. Like, you've
Video.
got to do videos. You got to get out there. And I was like, my ego, my identity, my sense of belonging, oh, hell no, I don't want to be doing
Right.
this. And
Right.
so it's been this whole growth process of pushing myself. And like, on one hand, I am mostly doing it for you guys, for the audience, because people tell me that if it's video, it'll access more people and it'll make a difference. And so here I am. And I'll deal with whatever the hell the backlash is that comes from it. But the other piece that made the difference for me, and this just comes from my internal motivations, is there was a personal growth edge for me to take on.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever I can get oriented to that, because then that also is more of my contribution. Like,
Right.
I've said this a million times, I'll say it a million more. My favorite definition of leadership is the one who goes first.
Yeah.
That's it. So like
That's
the first
it.
one to forgive, the first one to take the risk, the first one to stick their foot out, the first one to stick their foot in their mouth. That'd be me. So like that ability. And so here I am, not the first one on YouTube at all, but I'm a
Right.
little late to that game. But that wherever I continue, that same thing we've been talking about, breaking
Yeah.
open those patterns, opening up the comfort zone, taking a step outside of the comfort zone. Like, I mean, that never ends. No matter how far along you are, there's always the next ring out, the next ring out. And
Yes.
that is definitely what we're doing
Yes.
here. 100%.
Yes.
So
100%.
yep. It's good for our brains. It's good for our hearts.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my gosh. Dr. Cari, so good to be
Yes.
with you. I'm very
It's so good
clear
to be
we
with
could
you.
keep going, but you've brought so many awesome ideas and concepts forward. And I
Yeah.
know we're doing good work when I get the tingly feelings and I start feeling the energy move, which happened so many times through this conversation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thanks for
And I
bringing
just
it.
want to say this here
Yeah.
in front of God and everybody, right? You are one of those people that when I was still, when I met you, I had not been diagnosed yet.
Mm.
And for that reason, I used to hide a lot. Like I would talk, but one-on-one engagement, and things like that was still really awkward for me. And I want to thank you for being one of those people that saw me and that loved me and helped me to feel safer in a world where I was willing to come out more, right?
Yeah.
When I first met you, what we're doing right now, I don't know if that would have been possible. I would have shied away from it, fearful I might stutter or something like that. But your coaching was amazing. But aside from that, I never once felt like I was a job or a task
Mhm.
with you. I always knew you saw me. Thank you, my dear Dr. Marshall, for that.
You're so welcome. Well, thank you for being here and contributing to the Heal conversation. And until we get to do it again. Thank you for being here. This conversation is your invitation to remember that healing can be messy, hard work, and also beautiful. Stay connected. Join my newsletter at sarahmarshallnd.com or through the link in the show notes. Until next time, keep asking the questions that matter, and you will find your own path to healing. And of course, a special thanks to my extraordinary and generous guests, my producer, Joshua Watherston, video editing by Nellie Dawson, artistic graphical design by Amy Pruitt, and music by Roddy Nickpour. And as always, thank you for being here.